Welcome to Talking Jets. Oh, nope, that's the wrong intro. Welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot today. Boys and girls, I'm all sorts of excited to talk to you. I want to go over Pro Football Focus's top 150 players in free agency this week, and I want to take a look at it. We'll go through a bunch of the players. We'll skim over some of the ones we're not going to really look at too closely, but I want to take a look at it. But before we do, you guys know, got to thank the sponsor of the channel, SKG Tax. The New York Jets practice and play in New Jersey. This tax season, Jet fans may struggle with their state identity. If you are a fan and can't determine how to report your income, call JR the Tax Czar and address all your multi-state tax questions. Don't go on the road to another state as a wildcard filer. Hire yourself a CPA to game plan and defend your home turf. Thank you so much for sponsoring the channel. So without further ado, I do want to get into this top 150 free agent list. I want to look at wide receivers, offensive linemen primarily, but as we go through this, I want to hear your guys' comments in the chat as well and just sort of go through any players that sort of pique your interest as we go through here. If we want to pull up statistics, I'll pull them up as we go and we can kind of discuss all of this. It's always a lot of fun. Always a lot of fun to chop it up with you guys. So we'll do this. I don't know how long it'll take to go over, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes or so. But a fun little bit here. I see Dakota in the chat as always, bright and early. Matthias, Todd, Radimus. Thank you guys for jumping in. All right, let's pull up the top 150. Go through this little by little. Chris Jones, number one player on their big board. Not going to be an option for your New York Jets. we could skip right through here. Every bit of deserving of being the number one player. Kirk Cousins is going to be really interesting. I'm fascinated to see where he ultimately ends up. You know, does he go to a team like Atlanta who's already locked and loaded? Does he try to stay in Minnesota? Do they want to try and, you know, I don't know, where else could he go? Denver may be an option, but that's going to be really, you know, they're not in good cap situation, so I don't know if I see that. The Raiders are going to be looking for a quarterback. Do we see him there? The Patriots could be looking for a quarterback. Do they want to go the vet route, have a little bit of stability in front of a rookie that they seemingly might want to draft? Or maybe they go with a Marvin Harrison Jr. and they add a Kirk Cousins. I don't know. I'm hoping he stays in the NFC. I like Kirk Cousins a lot. I don't particularly want to see him in the NFC. Oh, what's up, Joe? Joe says, every dollar Jets create in cap space will continue to destroy the future. 2025 and 26 caps are a disaster. Oh, you're going to get me all fired up. Joe, again, we could talk free agency dollars. Let's see if we want to pull this up. I should have set a slide for this because I did not have it set up, and I don't know if I can do it cleanly. But we have plenty of money that we can work with here. And I also don't think, like, as much as I understand what you're saying, like, hey, when you restructure and you push off money into the future, we have a GM and a head coach that don't care about the future. They need to win right now. So regardless of how we all feel about pushing cap into the future, I think it's going to be a necessity and it's ultimately going to end up happening. But the Jets should have about $50 or $60 million that they can have from doing what's known as simple restructures. Simple restructures are not requiring of a player to have to renegotiate their contract. The team could just kind of move some money around and magic happens and cap space starts freeing up. So I could see the Jets doing that, pushing money into the future, as Joe is sort of saying here. We'd still have over $100 million in salary cap space in 2025, so I don't know if it's necessarily a big issue either way. But that's about how much money we're looking to play with here. Number 3, Josh Allen from the Jaguars. This is a very important player for the New York Jets to keep an eye on, because if he works out a long-term deal with Jacksonville, I think there's a very high likelihood that the franchise tag is going to be applied to Calvin Ridley. I know there's a lot of Jags fans that are or a lot of people are feeling they're going to use the franchise tag on Josh Allen, but according to UCF Jaguar, I talked to him this past week, he thinks the franchise tag is going to go on Calvin Ridley and they're going to work out a long-term deal with Josh Allen, and that's because he is so elite and so electric. It's easy to just kind of hand him the next biggest edge rusher contract or whatever you want to do in that perspective. So I think that's definitely the route that they go. I think they lock him in for a long-term deal, and he'll stay in Jacksonville, and the franchise tag ultimately gets freed up for Calvin Ridley. Now, maybe there's a situation where that doesn't happen. You got to pay attention to this. If Josh Allen doesn't have a contract, that franchise tag will get applied to him, and Calvin Ridley is going to shake free. So that would be the Jets' top option, I would think, at wide receiver, assuming T. Higgins is not re-signed. T. Higgins and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to look to re-sign in that location because obviously Joe Burrow restructured his contract last year. He wanted T. Higgins in the fold for next year. And I think they try to go one more season all in. And if they can get it figured out, then I see T. Higgins getting franchise tag. I don't think he's leaving Cincinnati. I would be very surprised. This is one of, obviously, both these conversations. The Josh Allen conversation with Calvin Ridley and T. Higgins, two players that Sauce Gardner wanted us to target here. And I think a lot of fans should want these particular players, above a lot of others. T. Higgins, awesome size profile, 6'4", 215 pounds or whatever. Definitely a big body receiver that could be a number one in this league and would perfectly complement Garrett Wilson. Edge rusher Brian Burns from Carolina. I feel like he's got to be franchise tagged. There's going to be so many teams that would want this guy. This guy's super electric, but he's I don't see him going anywhere. Justin Madubuike, I do not know. That name, I have not watched him super frequently, but based on what they're saying, top free agency grades, I don't know. I don't know much about the interior defensive line of the Baltimore Ravens. I think it's a defensive lineman. Well, it's a defensive lineman. I don't know if is he a tackle or is he an edge rusher? Backside pursuit, blah, blah, blah. More explosive first step, crashing big time, pressure output with at least a half a sack in 13 of 17 games. Dude, the guy's getting home. It's productive. All right, Christian Wilkins, interior defensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins. They're going to try and re-sign this guy. This is the contracts have already been laid out. You've seen Dexter Lawrence get paid. You saw Quinnen Williams get paid. All the defensive tackles from that class got paid last year, except for Wilkins. Now, Miami is in a little bit of cap trouble, so maybe there's a situation where he winds up shaking free, but you really got to solidify the interior part of your defensive line. Maybe Vic Fangio wants to steal him away, bring him to Philadelphia. I wouldn't mind that. I obviously don't want to see him in the AFC too much longer. Antoine Winfield Jr. Jets could use a safety. I'm not looking to spend high money on one, though. Jalen Johnson, he's not going to be an option for the New York Jets. Jets aren't going to go high-priced cornerback here. Same thing with Snead. Pittman Jr., again, another fascinating wide receiver, someone that I think Jet fans really want on their team. Very stoic, not a lot of waves caused, but it seems like he wants to play on the franchise tag, and Indianapolis has a lot of cap dollars and also has a young franchise quarterback that they're hoping to groom. So a guy with a massive catch radius, I don't see him actually leaving Indianapolis. I think he plays on the tag for one more season or signs a longer-term deal with them. Danielle Hunter, Minnesota. Maybe, I guess we could always look at any of these edge rusher locations as locations where Bryce Huff might be able to get traded. So maybe there's a situation where it's like, hey, we'll trade you Bryce Huff on a franchise tag that you want to renegotiate a contract with, and then maybe some other assets to maybe pick up a second-round pick, for example, from Minnesota. Something to keep an eye on here. Mike Evans coming in at number 13 on their list. I want Mike Evans. Of all the wide receivers that could hit free agency, I think Mike Evans is my favorite just because of the timeline that he's going to be on in terms of a contract. Like I'm envisioning a 2 or 3 year guarantee as far as contract goes, which lines up well with Garrett Wilson's contract. I'd want to make sure we have plenty of space for Garrett Wilson on the backside of things. So a 2-year, 3-year contract is something that I really like. And I love the size profile. Again, 10 years, over 1,000 yards receiving. He had, I think, 13 touchdowns this past year. Just absolutely wild. Now, he is going to be looking for the Cooper Kupp type money. They're talking about him being 3 years, $80 million, which is absolutely bananas for a wide receiver. And I don't know if the Jets, if that's the number that's ultimately going to go down for Mike Evans, I don't know if the Jets are going to be able to be in on that, especially if they want to try and tag and trade Huff. The Huff thing is going to be a real conundrum for us, I think, from a salary cap perspective. Tyron Smith, we hit the first offensive tackle on this list here. I really like him a lot. He's the left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. He has been there for his entire career. I think it's, 11 years now, 12 years? At this point, he's 32 years old. He has been banged up a little bit the last few years, so he's not playing all 17 games. So in your mind, you almost have to consider, like, okay, are we going to go after someone who's consistently healthy for like a full 17, which I do think is probably a little bit rare in the NFL today, but someone that's at least more available, even if the quality of play isn't quite as high. Like Tyron Smith is a top 5, top 10 tackle in this league. He kind of falls in that sort of Bakhtiari realm for me, where it'd be like an interesting stopgap for, maybe if you have someone like Carter Warren who you think could groom into a left tackle or something along those lines. Maybe you feel a little more roll of the dicey if you like your backup. Now, I like Tyron Smith a lot more than Bakhtiari just because he's on the field more frequently, but I don't know if Smith actually leaves Dallas. Dallas is in a little bit of cap trouble, but I think they're going to extend Dak Prescott, create some extra space, and I think they would like to keep Smith there for a little bit. I think I want to say he played on a 1-year, $10 million deal or $12 million deal this past year, so really not bad, but I would love to get him in here. Fuller, Jets won't be in on him. Leonard Williams, what's up, old buddy? It's wild to think that the Giants got more trade assets back for Leonard Williams the second time around than what we got for him initially. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he ultimately ends up. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, coming out of Arizona. Arizona projected by a lot of people to take Marvin Harrison Jr. at the top of the draft. So that means they could be replacing him with a cheap contract here. Could Marquise Brown be looking for a big contract? Is he looking for a little bit more of a prove-it deal? I don't know what kind of like contract he's earned at this particular point. He's not really the size profile I want. I don't really want a 5'9", 180-pound receiver. He plays bigger than his size, but again, I want someone who's going to help us in the red zone. So Brown is not someone I'm particularly keen on the Jets bringing in. Bryce Huff, wow, number 18. When you see someone that's this high up on your free agent board, you got to figure out some way to acquire some type of asset or something for the New York Jets. Like the fact that you didn't trade Bryce Huff and it's seemingly not going to lead to any type of long-term deal with him here, I can't just see him walk for free. I'd be really pissed off if that happened. So I would love to see us get a second-round pick. Now you're going to have to franchise tag him. Is there a team, or not so much is there a team? I think there's going to be a team that's going to want Bryce Huff, but I don't know if there's going to be a team that wants to negotiate if Huff says, I want to play on the franchise tag. And that's like it, because now maybe you're looking at, instead of a second-round pick, you're talking about maybe like a fourth-round pick or a third-round pick. But I guess getting anything at this point is a good move. One thing that I've seen floated out there by some fans, really liked it, was the idea of trading number 10 overall and Bryce Huff to the Chargers, who are likely going to have to cut Khalil Mack and may end up having to restructure Joey Bosa. If you trade Bryce Huff over there, he can re-sign a deal. His cap hit's not going to be the cap hit that Khalil Mack was going to have. So it would be dramatically lower, even though it would be a fresh deal with new money. But then you move up to number 5, and now all of a sudden you're in a position to get left tackle Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. That's my favorite scenario, I think, right now, unless you can convince someone to give you a number 2 overall pick. So keep an eye out for Bryce Huff. Would love to keep him here, but I don't think it's actually going to happen. DJ Reader, defensive lineman for the Bengals. I don't think the Jets are going to be in on someone this high priced. I think we're looking more along the lines of like Jefferson coming back, and I would love to see us add like a Fletcher Cox. I think that would be kind of fun. So I don't see this. Duggar, again, safety, just not really high up there for the New York Jets in terms of need. I feel like the safety realm for the New York Jets is going to fall somewhere in the Ashton Davis, Chuck Clark, Bernard Converse, and Tony Adams realm. I think they're going to kind of roll with that. I don't think they're going to spend a whole lot of money here. Trent Brown, tackle for the New England Patriots, coming in at number 22. He has positional flexibility, left-hand tackle, right-hand tackle. This is someone to keep an eye on. I'm not like super high on Trent Brown, but I'm always a fan of knocking down a division rival by bringing someone in that was from their team, because they're going to have a little bit extra juice when you play that team in the regular season. So I would keep an eye on this. It gives you a little bit of flexibility with AVT. Like, let's say you go into the draft with someone like Trent Brown that you've signed in free agency, and you're telling everyone, hey, we're going to put AVT at the other tackle. Now at least you provided a little bit of cover for what you're going to do at number 10. Last year, we telegraphed that we were going to need a tackle at number 13. We trade back to 15, and then all of a sudden, the Steelers trade up to number 14 to steal the final left tackle at the top of the first round there in Broderick Jones. So I would like to go into the draft without needing those types of, or without sending out those types of red flags. And if Trent Brown is the answer to that, then maybe if Fashanu falls, then Brown kicks over to right tackle. If Fashanu's not there, maybe you want to go with Fuaga and Trent Brown plays left tackle. And then you have AVT as a little bit of a chip that you could move around in the event one of these guys goes down with an injury. Ideally for me, I would like to keep AVT on the inside. It just depends on how likely you are to land certain players throughout the offseason. So I do like Trent Brown a little bit more than probably some other people. Kevin Dotson with the Rams, little Sean McVay action. This is someone that, like, I think he's older too. What is his age right now? I wish they would throw that on here. They're comparing him to Larry Wolford, though, who I believe was also much older. Oh, obviously 2017. That's a solid 6 years ago now, or 7. Calvin Ridley. What I was going to say is I don't think he's going to end up moving. I think he's going to hang out in LA. As far as Calvin Ridley, I like Calvin Ridley. I would have traded for him a few years ago. I think he is someone that complements Garrett, not in a size stature, but in a route running perspective. Like if you are concerned about the offensive line, maybe wide receivers that get open really fast are kind of your what you're feeling a little bit more than a big body guy that might have to develop a play further down the field. And Calvin Ridley's really good at route running. So if you can get open within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, like the tight ends that they want to try and use, like Garrett Wilson and all that good stuff, maybe this is a direction the Jets end up going. This is probably the most likely wide receiver at the top of the free agent board that could shake free, and it's all pending on what happens with Josh Allen here coming up. Mike Onwenu, tackle for the New England Patriots. This is another player that we talked about in free agency, some offensive line options that the New York Jets could look at. This guy played a little bit of guard, if I'm not mistaken, as well. He's a lot younger. I think he's 26 years old. So that's someone that I think, if you wanted to invest a little bit more in, I would very much like, and he doesn't cause a lot of penalties, if memory serves correct. I would like to see the Jets have the guys that are being brought in have positional flexibility. And I'm not necessarily always crazy about New England Patriot offensive linemen, but since Brady kind of left, I feel like that's a little less of a concern as far as like, oh, they're getting away with all these penalties and then they go elsewhere and then they actually get the penalties. I don't know. Cuddy comes in. Cuddy says, give me a proven offensive lineman over a wide receiver, draft a weapon, sign O-line. I definitely think that's going to be the route they sort of lean to look, unless we can get someone via trade. I really want to get Cortland Sutton from Denver. If you can trade a 2025 pick or maybe the 2024 third round pick or something like that to acquire him, then you feel good about your wide receiver group, especially if you can get someone like a Curtis Samuel in free agency as well. But I feel like the free agent market for wide receiver is going to drive very fast, and I feel like the Jets are more likely to attract an offensive lineman knowing we could overpay them, and keeping Rodgers upright is going to be more important than getting the receiver at this point in time, I think. But we'll get both. It's going to happen. I'm not going to pronounce that name. I can never pronounce it, but we're not looking at a cornerback, so I'm not terribly concerned about this. Robert Hunt, Miami Dolphins. A lot of fans really like him. This guy's going to get a pretty big contract. So I don't know if the Jets are going to be in on like a really high-priced interior offensive lineman when we already have one coming down the pipeline with a fifth-year option in AVT here. I think he ultimately ends up staying in Miami because he was one of their better offensive linemen moving forward. Chase Young, edge rusher. Sorry. If we bring in an edge rusher after letting Bryce Huff go, I'm going to lose my bananas. Saquon Barkley, can you imagine having him as running back 2 behind Breece Hall? Not going to happen, but man, he's a Jet fan, so the dream's not totally dead. But man, that would be something special. He's going to go somewhere else. He'll be a feature back. Same with Josh Jacobs. He'll end up somewhere. He like really had a dud of a year after coming off last season. Like, I don't know what happened, but I would very much steer clear of a Josh Jacobs type signing. Derrick Henry, with the interest in the Jets in the Titans running back coach, Dewars or whatever the hell his name is. This would be like an interesting running back 2 option, depending on how much you'd have to pay for him. I think Henry's going to get more money than I would like to devote to, a backup behind Breece Hall. I would rather go with like a drafted player and just keep fresh legs in the backfield. But man, that's like, who knows? Maybe there's something to it. Kevin Zeitler, this is someone I wanted the Jets to sign a few years ago when he was leaving the Giants going to Baltimore. So I would very much like this move. He's healthy. He plays over, I think it's over 1,000 snaps in like 8 of his 11 seasons. He's a lot older than some of these other guys. I think he's 30, so he's 33. I think he's going to be 34 before the season. Pretty sure that's what I had on my slide, but I would absolutely go after him. Again, don't even consider age so big of a priority. Consider like production more than anything else, because this is a win now for this year and potentially next year, not necessarily many years in the future. Stephon Gilmore, not going to be an option for the Jets. Frankie Louvu, interesting. Could you imagine bringing him back here? I don't see that happen. Jets have a nice little linebacker room. Nelson, cornerback, not going to be an option for the Jets. Dalton Schultz, remember not so long ago, Jet fans wanted him. Glad he's not here. We have some other options. Connor Williams tore his ACL in week 14, I believe. Was this against the Jets? I think it was against the Jets. This was sad to see because he's a pretty rock solid center there, but he's probably going to miss a chunk of next year if I had to guess. He's not going to be an option for the New York Jets. Edge rusher, we're not going to be looking at. Linebacker, there's like an outside chance that the Jets could be going a linebacker in some capacity, but I think they're going to restructure CJ Mosley and try to keep him here for the next year or two. They'll try to align him with whatever Aaron Rodgers does on a year-to-year basis. You got to drop CJ's contract, though. It's so expensive. It's like a $21 million cap hit, and I think it's $17 million guaranteed, and I don't think you can justify paying that out right now. So I think they restructure him. Clowney, I don't know where he goes. He's not going to come here, though. Cornerback, nope. Edge rusher, nope. Safety, no. I mean, anytime there's a giant free agent at a position of need for the New York Jets, you always want to like at least take a look at it, because those guys don't have to move their homes or change their friend groups or anything like that. They're still all within, their little area here. But this is going to be a little bit more expensive at safety. I don't think the Jets are in on any high-priced safeties there. Andre James, Las Vegas Raiders. I would look for this guy to go to the Giants because they picked up the Raiders offensive line coach. I think that's a really good spot for him if they want to have, and you have to look at positional flexibility because I don't really know. They drafted the center last year out of, what was the name? I'm going to forget the name right now. He was arguably the top center on the board, and we took Tippmann in front of him. You guys will let me know in the chat, and I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. Ryan. But look for an option. I think the Giants are going to be an option for him in some capacity, depending on how they want to play. John Michael Schmitz, there it is, Blitz Crew. Thank you. Knew it was going to be there. Patrick Queen, linebacker from the Baltimore Ravens. How are we feeling about him? Queen's pass rushing prowess is not captured below, but it carries significant value in addition to his strong play against the run and in coverage over the last 2 seasons. I feel like linebacker is not really a position of need for us because we're so good against the pass anyway with both Quincy and CJ. Maybe you draft someone. You already have Surratt sitting behind those guys and Zaire Barnes. I think we're pretty happy with where we're at right now. Hunter Henry, tight end. I don't see the Jets going with another free agent tight end. I think they're going to cut CJ Uzomah. I think Ruckert, I would love to move him into like the fullback role and sort of displace Nick Bawden. I feel like that would be a really nice move for the New York Jets. And then maybe it frees up some tight end options, whether it's like a Bowers at the top of the draft or some other, middle tier tight end. I don't really want to see CJ on the field. And I don't know maybe Kuntz gets some looks at some point as like a tight end 3, and maybe Yeboah slots in a little bit higher. I don't know. I feel like tight end's going to be an interesting position there. Mekhi Becton, obviously the big ticket. I don't think he's coming back. I really don't. Now, an outside chance of it happening because of the relationship he has with Rodgers to some degree, but I feel like if Rodgers is sitting back and he's saying, this dude let up how many sacks? This dude let up how many penalties? Like, what is the upside here? The upside is that maybe he returns to form that he had 4 years ago. I don't know. I feel like it's probably best to break it off here and let Mekhi find his own spot elsewhere and we go a different direction. Now, maybe there's a situation where they're like, hey, he's going to come back. He's going to play for a 1 year, $7 million, 1 year, $8 million deal to be our right tackle. I'd probably be a little more open to it as long as he's not the only we're not solely relying on him. But I guess it depends how the tackle market shakes out. I would predict he's going to go elsewhere though. I see Blitzcrew in the chat saying maybe Kuntz will be ready. Green Bean's favorite, Yaboa. Yeah, I always love hearing Green Bean talk about our tight ends. Edge rusher, not going to be an option for the Jets, but I would look for maybe Bryce Huff going to the New England Patriots. That is not a very fun situation for the New York Jets when you have a division rival, like I said, going to, or one of your players going to a division rival. It's the opposite of what I was saying before, where Trent Brown comes over here because we want to give Trent Brown a little more juice when he goes against the Patriots. Imagine Bryce Huff pinning his ears back coming after the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure he'd be licking his chops. I could definitely see this happening. Leonard Floyd, edge rusher for the Bills. He's a fascinating one. If the Jets wanted a low-end edge rusher to I shouldn't say low-end because Floyd is not necessarily a low-end, but I think he's going to be a lot cheaper than what Huff is going to command on the open market. So maybe you take a look at Floyd. If you have McDonald, you have JJ, then you have, how much are you using JFM on the outside? I don't know. I think we could bring in some type of, pass rush specialist, but I could imagine, wanting to have a little bit more set the edge. I don't know. You got to replace Carl Lawson, right? Because if you lose Bryce Huff and you lose Carl Lawson, you're only plugging in Will McDonald. Are you really projecting him to play as many snaps as that? I don't know. David Garrard. Did he have an Achilles? Is that right? Is that actually true? That was a while ago, I thought. Or was it this year? Floyd's long and lanky body only burst. No, he was just playing, wasn't he? Did I just miss this? Is he actually the Achilles? Hopefully not. Either way, we'll move on. Edge rusher's not a big priority. He said he did it to Aaron. Yeah, he landed on top of him. I see what you're saying. Jordan Brooks, linebacker, Seattle. Again, I just don't really see the Jets going linebacker here. Interior defensive line. I think we try to retain more of our own than anything else. Safety, again, I don't really see. Tight end. Yeah, this was the part of the Russell Wilson trade. So does he wind up leaving Seattle at this point in time with Noah Fant? Guess it's possible. Jonah Williams. This is a popular one for Jet fans because it's a right tackle seemingly going to shake free from Cincinnati. He requested a trade last offseason. They signed Orlando Brown to a massive contract, so he's kind of feeling a little displaced. He was the left tackle, gets moved over to right tackle. Now, he did say all the right things this year after rescinding his trade request, but the Jets could take a look at him. Now, he's got a pretty decent amount of penalties and a pretty decent amount of sacks. Not as high as Mekhi Becton, so it would be an upgrade in that capacity, but it depends how much money you're looking to pay him, because if you're going to pay Jonah Williams a massive contract on multiple years, maybe you're better off spending a little bit of money on a prove-it deal for Mekhi Becton because he's already in-house. I do know, I have heard rumblings that the Jets are interested in Jonah Williams. So as a right tackle, man, he's not really super high up on my list. I thought he was going to be a lot higher. When I did my mock offseason mid-season, it was like, wow, this guy's going to be the top option available for us at right tackle. And then I started digging deeper into his stats and the penalties and whatnot, and I get a little bit of the not so warm and fuzzies. So we'll see here. I would not say no to most offensive linemen, though. So I should probably preface it with that. Tony Pollard, running back for the Cowboys. I feel like he should get more than we would want to pay for a running back. But the running back market's always, I feel like the same thing each year. You're like, well, that guy's really good, but I could always draft one in the draft. So I would take a rookie in the later rounds for the New York Jets. Same thing with Austin Eckler. As much as I like him, there's no benefit in the Jets paying out that much. Lloyd Cushenberry, center for the Denver Broncos. So this is another, anyone from the Broncos, I do want to take a little bit of a look at because of our connection with the coaching staff. Obviously, Nate Hackett, former head coach, Zach Aziani, former wide receivers coach for the Denver Broncos. Cushenberry, if you bring in a veteran center, could you kick Tittman out to guard? I think there's a really strong likelihood that Tittman is going to play guard next year, but I think it's going to be because McGovern ends up playing center. So I think McGovern on a 1-year, $1.9 million deal, I think that's what he signed this past season. I would prefer to go that route and have the positional flexibility of Tittman to kick into center, Wes, who's already under contract, kick into center. I don't think we're going to spend serious money at center other than like a bring back of Connor McGovern. Bobby Wagner, linebacker for Seattle. I've seen a lot of people say that. Wagner's been a tackling machine, but we have our Wagner in CJ Mosley, and I don't see him leaving the West Coast. So I don't see this as an option. Van Ginkel from the Dolphins. Again, I don't see the Jets spending overly on the defensive line from an edge rusher perspective. So I would skip that one. Darnell Mooney is an interesting one. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers went against him the last few years, not necessarily on the field at the same time, but got to see him opposite with him being in Chicago and Aaron Rodgers being in Green Bay. Darnell Mooney has had a very underwhelming last 2 years. Ever since DJ Moore got traded to Chicago, Mooney's stats kind of fell off the map, and then he got hurt. I want to say he like broke his ankle, I think. Is that what it was? A few minor injuries is what they're saying. He broke his ankle, I think, like a year and a half ago. So I would think this guy's a very low-risk, high-reward type player. I would bring in a Darnell Mooney. This would be a very underrated type signing for the New York Jets. You're talking like probably $5 million if I had to guess, like sub $10 million. And deep threat too. Like he can take the top off of a defense. So this is a low risk, high reward type move here. Jermaine Illuminor, tackle for the Las Vegas Raiders. This guy has only made $9 million in his career to date. And I believe he is 20, does it say on here? No. 27 years old, 28 years old. So he, I think, is going to want to sign the biggest contract possible. So I think it is possible if the Jets wanted to like wow him, you could lure him away. He's a much higher degree of uncertainty because he's only had like one good season. They're all like kind of like fine seasons, but he played well this past year. Does he go over to the Giants, who need tackle help, who also have Las Vegas Raiders offensive line coach? That's sort of where I've kind of been projecting him. Sheldon Rankins, come on back, buddy. Nah, I think he stays in Houston. They're having a good year down there. Gabe Davis, Buffalo Bills wide receiver. I've always liked Gabe Davis. He didn't do much ever since Joe Brady took over play calling responsibilities up in Buffalo. I think he would be a great landing spot, or I think it would be a great landing spot for him to end up in New York for the Giants, not for the Jets with Daboll down there. I think Stefon Diggs has a chance maybe to end up with the Giants, but his contract's a little funkier. At least Gabe Davis, you can bring him in for fractions of what you would have to give up for, Stefon Diggs. Edge rusher from Tennessee, don't think so. Dalton Reisner, Minnesota Vikings. I actually have not watched a whole lot on him. So Reisner's 2023 free agency didn't pan out as he'd hoped. So he's bided his time before joining Minnesota a few weeks into the 2023 season. On a one-year flyer, Reisner quickly supplanted Ezra Cleveland at left guard and has been a plus pass protector for his fifth season in a row. So Ezra Cleveland was traded from Minnesota to Jacksonville this past year. I believe it was was it a fifth round pick or a fourth round pick? It was like a mid to late round pick. And the Jets didn't make a move, and a lot of Jet fans were bent out of shape because we thought that could have been an option to help us out on the offensive line. Reisner does well to initiate contact with a solid punch, ensuring he doesn't expose his chest or get his hands swatted away. Even on bull rushes where Reisner is driven back and gives up pressures, he keeps his feet square, stays in front of him. The edge rusher stays in front of the edge rusher to prevent the hit on the quarterback, frequently providing his signal caller with just enough time to get a pass off. Guard help? I mean, if you're getting rid of Laken Tomlinson, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to bring in someone like either an Ezra Cleveland or a Dalton Reisner. But you would think he would wind up staying in Minnesota if he was brought in partway through the season and they got rid of a cheaper option that was on the roster at that particular point in time. So I think he stays in Minnesota. Safety, again, I don't see the Jets being overly crazy there. Ezra Cleveland, the guard from Jacksonville, I would think after giving up a pick, they may want to hold on to him. So let's see. Cleveland was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars at last year's deadline, logging more than 1,100 snaps at left guard for the Minnesota Vikings in 2021 and 2022. The former second-round pick out of Boise State kicked inside and has been a great run blocker since day one, predominantly in the zone scheme. Cleveland passes off double teams well, getting to defenders play side shoulder, and down blocking them away from the ball carrier while setting himself free to square up on second-level defenders. In pass protection, Cleveland can set a bit upright with his weight distributed to the back of his feet, which makes him susceptible to rushers pushing him off his spot at times or crossing his face without much resistance. I would want Kevin Zeitler and AVT to be my guards if I needed to kind of, pencil in who I would prefer to be my starters. I don't think I would be sitting here with an Ezra Cleveland, but I do think at the time trading for him last year would have made a little bit more sense. Ryan Tannehill. If you guys saw my backup quarterback video yesterday, you guys will know. Sorry, crack one open here. Friday, 5 o'clock somewhere. If you guys saw my backup quarterback video, you'll know I think Ryan Tannehill is most likely to end up in New York. He's got obviously starting caliber experience. I think he provides the safest floor for a backup quarterback. I would really love to go with like a younger 30-year-old type, backup quarterback that could have a resurgence post Aaron Rodgers that has learned, through the league. The Jets tend to have better luck with some veteran quarterbacks anyway, along with like a third string quarterback to come in. But Ryan Tannehill, it's hard to argue him when you're trying to go all in for a Super Bowl and you need like at the very least stability behind the quarterback. It's just a matter of how much money is he going to command as a backup, because he's been making some pretty good money over in Tennessee. I don't know if this is going to be financially able to happen. That's I think more my question. But I don't see anyone like offering him a starting job. So coming where he knows the coaches, has a shot at a ring, maybe that's enticing enough for him to come here. Odell Beckham obviously fancies himself a New York guy. Do the negotiations from last year have any impact on where he would like to play this year? Or is he just saying, hey, I'm going to win my ring with Baltimore and then I'll come back to New York and I'll basically retire on a contract there where I want to be? I could totally see that. Could he end up with the Giants? I wonder if there's any like thought to that possibly, since the whole regime's different. I mean, I guess ownership's still the same, so maybe there's some hurt feelings or something there. But I could definitely see Odell as a New York Jet. It's not someone I'm crazy about, but I think we could do a lot worse for a wide receiver too. And it depends how much you're paying him. Like if you're giving him $15 million, I think that's more than I would prefer to go. Linebacker, we're going to pass on that. Defensive line, pass. Fletcher Cox, though, I did bring him up. We tried to go after him last year. I do think Fletcher Cox is going to be on the Jets' radar this past season or this upcoming offseason because of how on the radar he was last offseason. He's a lot older, not too far away down in Philly. I would like to plug him in. I'm a big fan of Fletcher Cox. He's an ageless wonder. Ageless wonder. Feels like this guy is always free agent too. Devin White, Tampa Bay, linebacker. Again, I don't see it being a good option. And I don't love, I think I was looking at tape at Tampa Bay, and I was not like crazy. Obviously, top 5 pick. He hasn't really performed like that the last little bit here. I would not go after the linebacker. Wide receiver Tyler Boyd. So I really like Tyler Boyd. I saw Green Bean's post yesterday talking about Tyler Boyd a little bit, and this is someone I think is more likely to shake free from Cincinnati. Now, my concern with Tyler Boyd is more so that I don't think he's going to come to New York unless we're going to overpay a little bit. So if you're okay with that, he really has a close relationship with Mike Tomlin, and he's from Pittsburgh. So my gut feeling is that's where he's ultimately going to end up. But I do like Tyler Boyd. I would be very happy if the Jets wound up signing him. Baker Mayfield, he's going to stay in Tampa Bay. I love me some Baker. Curtis Samuel, this is a name to watch for a replacement for Randall Cobb. He is a Brooklyn native. Maybe you can get him back because he wants to come home to family. Maybe he's more likely to take a little bit of a discount. I would bring in Curtis Samuel. I've always liked him. I liked him when he was leaving Carolina. I think it would be a worthwhile move to bring him in here. I feel like he's always been a stand-up dude too. Aaron Brewer, this is a common name that I've seen brought up for a center connection for the New York Jets. Obviously, we have their offensive line coach in Keith Carter. Is there any hurt feelings from the former Tennessee Titans offensive lineman from his former offensive line coach? We've already heard stuff from Taylor Lewan and some of our own offensive linemen. So maybe Brewer does not want to play for Keith Carter, but I could see this being possibly an attractive option with the Jets possibly wanting to kick Tippmann over to one of the guard positions. I think Rodgers is definitely going to want to play with a veteran. I think that's why we brought back McGovern last year. And I'm curious to see if Tippmann's 1 year as a starter is enough to justify him staying as a starter in Rodgers' mind, or if, like, obviously his long-term, outlook is to hopefully have him at center. But if he has to play guard for a few years before kicking over to center, I'm not upset with that. Linebacker, not going to take a look at it. Safety, nope. Cashman, hey, what's up, buddy? Gone. Not going to take a look at that. Linebacker, nope. Dory Jackson, not happening. Gerald Everett, I really liked Everett. I don't think the Jets are going after him, though. Damian Lewis, guard out of Seattle. Lewis made strides over the past few seasons, especially as a pass protection after a tough start to his NFL career, holding up fairly well against bigger interior defenders, but struggling at times with quicker, twitchier interior pass rushers. The former third-round pick was a starter for the 2019 National Championship game. So that was the LSU team with Burrow and Chase, and although I think, did Chase sit out that year? So it might have been Burrow and Jefferson, and then Chase came out the year after, unless he played that year and then sat the year after that. Lewis is a mauler at 332 pounds, but moves well enough in a Seattle rushing attack that primarily uses zone rushes in addition to a healthy dose of gap concepts, which should expand his options in free agency. So I guess someone to take a look at for the New York Jets. If the Jets decide to move AVT to tackle, the guard options are much stronger in free agency than the tackle options. And I know a lot of us don't want to see AVT at tackle because we always pencil in, hey, AVT at tackle, 100% chance he's getting hurt because he tore his triceps, he's torn his Achilles. Is that just making him more susceptible to longer, more serious injuries? I'm skeptical on that, but maybe they decide to kick him out to tackle and they look at more guards. Edge rusher, we're not going to look at. Whitehead, obviously our New York Jet. I would like to move on from Jordan Whitehead. I think it's too many missed tackles. I liked him while he was here to a degree, but I think it was a little too unreliable, and the top would come off our defense a little bit more than I would like. And I think Chuck Clark was supposed to be maybe someone that we would have liked to have seen supplant someone like a Whitehead. But I think Whitehead's probably done. We do have some dead cap on our cap because of a restructure to him. Kendrick Bourne. Bourne unfortunately tore his ACL in Week 8 after serving as the number one wide receiver option for the Patriots passing attack. So yeah, I'm not in on an ACL guy that tore it mid-season. I think we have too many injuries already. Not worth it. We were in on Calais Campbell last year, and this dude is literally the ageless wonder. This guy is always, bouncing around and playing at a high level. I would like Calais Campbell. I would think at this point we're probably not in on him because of how we handled negotiations again last year. So he's, I don't know what his contract was this past year, what his actual dollar amount was to know if we could be in play. But we did take a look at him last year. I think Fletcher Cox is probably a little more realistic. Brandon Graham, I've always liked him. I think he's more likely to retire at this point than probably move to a different team. Odds are Graham will play his age 36 season as an Eagle or nowhere else, much like Jason Kelce. Okay, so they're projecting the same thing. They think he'll probably stay with the Eagles. Quan Jones, not going to take a look at that. Gardner Minshew, I would love Minshew as a backup quarterback. I don't see Minshew actually shaking free. I think he's going to stay in Indianapolis with Richardson needing some time to come back from the ACL injury and I think it was an ACL. His was ACL last year, right? I could see him wanting to stay there right now. But I've always liked Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew, he got displaced by Trevor Lawrence, and I think he cut or traded? I think he was traded to Philadelphia for not a very early pick. It was a late round pick, like a 6th round pick or something like that. Then he sits behind Jalen Hurts. Guy plays to an MVP caliber level. And then he goes to Indianapolis and they draft a quarterback with the 4th or 6th overall pick last year. I feel like Minshew has always had that moxie and always has there's always some sort of knock, not against him, but he's always just kind of held the ship down for the next person. I mean, heck, the Jaguars benched him in the season they were trying to tank for Trevor because they thought he was going to win them some games. So I like me some Gardner Minshew. He was my top backup quarterback option if he shakes free. I don't know if I see it. Aaron Rodgers connection here. John Runyon, guard for the Green Bay Packers. He played left guard. Maybe they pair up a little Bakhtiari and Runyon on the left-hand side. Not not super crazy about it. But let's see. Runyon is a pass plus pass protector on the interior with considerable starting experience at both guard spots over his rookie contract, operating well in a phone booth with a solid anchor against power rushers. However, the former 6th rounder can get his feet crossed up and end up on the ground more frequently than you'd like, particularly when asked to pull or reach block. For a team that's going to be running as much as we want, I feel like I really want like our guards to be able to pull well. So maybe he's not the option that I was thinking he might be. I think he could be an option either way, but we'll see. Tyler Biadasz, this was a popular name for Jet fans a few drafts ago. Extensive starting experience back in his days in Wisconsin. Does he stay with Dallas or does he leave? Now, let's see. They say, as a run blocker, Biadasz executes combo blocks well, though it helps to work alongside Zach Martin and Tyler Smith. Yeah, I could see that being a benefit here. So if they let him go, he's young, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure this is just him coming off his rookie contract right now. I don't think he's going to be an option for us. Jonah Jackson, Detroit Lions. Jackson is a force. I'll be honest, I have not watched him, but he's coming from the best offensive line in the country, I'm pretty sure. Jackson is a force in space in the run game who climbs to the second level well once he gets ahead of steam and adjusts laterally to plant his heavy hands into the chests of defenders with balanced feet. Jackson has continued to struggle in pass protection, which is a bit surprising given his athletic ability. He can be slow out of his stance and or flat-footed at times, which causes him to lose early on in reps. They're comparing him to a J.R. Schweezy. Pass block grade 56.6. Run block percentage, I guess, 15.8. I don't know, man. When I see Aaron Rodgers go down, I just want like pass blocking for once. But I don't know. I still take Zeitler over this guy. Hurst, nope. Hicks, nope. Shelton, don't think so. Quentin Jefferson, 7 sacks this past year. Let's bring him back. I want him back. I would like to see this. Reward the people that have performed well on your team. I think it's worth bringing him back. Carl Lawson, bye-bye. Sorry, dude. Wish so much hope for when Carl Lawson came in. He's never been the same since that popped Achilles, unfortunately. Javon Kinlaw, I don't believe the Jets are going to be in on him. CJ Gardner-Johnson. Jets going to do that. Did he tear his ACL? Or no, he got smoked. That's what it was. Recently, at the end of the season, I think is what I was seeing. Who did they play? Was it the Rams recently, where he just got his drum beat? Pooch Guy comes in. Pooch Guy says, check out Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. Derrick Henry 2.0. Ooh, I definitely will. I'm looking forward to going through the running backs. I want to see some late round guys. And I'll be honest, I have not dug deep into the draft running backs just yet. I feel like taking a look at someone at the Senior Bowl is probably a good look for later on in the draft. Shelby Harris, DeAndre Swift, Willie Gay, Epineza. Man, the Bills have a lot of free agents. They're in a rough spot right now. Derek Barnett, DJ Shark. So this is an interesting player. If you want low cost, high upside, he's got the size profile that we've been talking about, and he got kind of stuck in some weird situations definitely this last year with Carolina. Their offensive staff got fired. Bryce Young just wasn't playing up to the level they needed him to play up to. So is he a higher upside than what we've currently seen from him? He was with Detroit, I think 2 years ago, and did not have a great season. He's, I think, 3 years removed from his 1,000-yard season with Jacksonville. So if you can get him for like a $5 million valuation, I think that's where people have him sort of pegged as far as a contract. He signed a 1-year, $5 million deal this past year. So from a cheap perspective, Shark is someone that could provide you some high upside. I would keep an eye on him for a bargain bin kind of selection. Linebacker, nope. John Simpson, Baltimore Ravens. So I guess the other side of the offensive line there are times when Simpson gets over his skis a bit. If he keeps his feet under him, blah, 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 blah. I feel like these are all generic friggin' things. Pass block grade, 61.1. Compare him to John Miller. John Miller came from, did he go from Carolina to Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken? That would be an all right signing. Again, this feels more like a depth signing at this stage. Burks, Troutman, Josh Jones out of Houston. I'm surprised we haven't heard more of him. Pass block grade 71.6. I would keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him. I liked him coming out of, where did he come out of? Was it Utah? Josh Jones. I was watching him when he came out of college, and the college is escaping me right now, but he's someone to keep an eye on. If he winds up shaking free, obviously they got George Fant over there as well. So who are they going to re-sign? Michael Thomas, wide receiver from the Saints. Could he be an option? There were some people calling for him last year after he had missed a few seasons. I would imagine he's probably going to stay in New Orleans at this point. But they're saying receiving grade this past year of 72.6. It's better than A.J. Green. Average depth of target, 10.6. This feels more like a sideways step with Lazard at this point in his career, I think. Josh Reynolds from Detroit, 69.5. I'd have to do more research on him. I don't know how tall he is. I have not done enough on him to know. Now we're getting into some of the bad ones. Donovan Smith, he has been a stinker in terms of offensive line play for the Kansas City Chiefs, so I would not be super thrilled on this particular move. Alan says Jones went to Houston. I was right. So it was a Houston college. Austin Hooper from Vegas. I don't see that. Gesicki from the Patriots. I don't really see that. Let's see. Taquan Lewis. Graham Glasgow. All these guys that we talked about like 2 years ago. It's funny how it just cycles through, right? He was on my F, Marry, Kill. We could do let me know if you guys want to see me do, you know what? I'll do a poll question while we're doing it. Because I was talking to someone else about this the other day. Should I bring back you guys can let me know what you think. Should I bring back the old series, F, Marry, Kill? Basically saying the F is a short-term deal, the kill is I don't want to sign this guy, and the marry is a long-term deal. So we get three potential options at each spot in time. You guys can let me know if you guys want to see that type of video. I haven't done that in like 2 or 3 years. This has been a while. It probably throttles back my my analytics if I had to guess because of the cursing in it. That's all right. Greg Van Roten. Man. It's amazing how people figure out how to block after they leave the Jets, right? I think that ship has sailed. I think Van Roten is a Jet fan, if I'm not mistaken, too. So maybe he winds up coming here. Maybe is he a New York guy? Maybe he follows that. Everyone that's an offensive lineman for the Raiders, I just figure the Giants are going to have an inside track on most of these guys. That was a great signing by the Giants, by the way, with how many free agents the Raiders have on the O-line. George Fant, could we bring him back? If Mekhi Becton's not here, maybe we pencil him in as a swing tackle. I don't know. I'd probably want to pass on Fant right now. I would rather roll with like a Carter Warren, a rookie, and one of the higher end tackles on this list. I'd rather blow the bank on a tackle than maybe save some pennies for a George Fant. Kyle Van Noy, I don't see us going after him. Jacoby Brissett, I'm shocked he's this far down. I would absolutely take Jacoby Brissett. He looked really good the last 2 years of him playing. His career stats are a little bit more underwhelming than I actually realized. His time in Cleveland looked really good, and I would like to see him here. He's dealt with adversity constantly throughout his career, whether it be Andrew Luck retiring and him being the starter at that point, going to Cleveland being the starter in place of a suspended Deshaun Watson. I think Jacoby Brissett at 31, 32 years old is the type of quarterback that I could see kind of like a Geno Smith having that second resurgence after maybe an Aaron Rodgers retires. It could be in a year, it could be in 2 years, but I would like to bring in Jacoby Brissett if he becomes available. Davenport, former first-round pick. Man, he's fallen a bit. Minnesota's got both Danielle Hunter and Davenport to bring back, and Kirk Cousins. There's going to be some issues there. Not to mention they got to pay Justin Jefferson. So there could be a good, could definitely be a situation where you get some players falling free from Minnesota. J.K. Dobbins. Man, he's just always tearing ACLs. I don't think you can remotely consider this guy, unfortunately. Devin Singletary, I think he'll wind up staying in Houston. He had a pretty good season this past year. Jameis Winston was on my list. I don't think he's going to be an option for the New York Jets, not realistically at least. I think the off the field and like some of the character concerns, like not listening to your coach is definitely not like a great move. I don't like the whole victory formation running the ball. I'm fine with them changing the play to a run, but at least change it out of victory formation. I thought that was a kind of a shitty way to do it. And I don't particularly love Winston. He would be exciting to watch though. 30 for 30. Why not? After what we've had to see. Evan Brown, again, I still would probably go McGovern here. A.J. Dillon, running back for the Packers. Maybe he becomes a cheap running back 3 for the New York Jets if Rodgers wants to play with him again. Zach Moss, I don't see him being here. Nick Westbrook, Deshaun Elliott, Tayshaun Gibson, San Francisco guy. There's always going to be a connection with any San Francisco type player. Does he go to Houston to go with the DeMeco Ryans? Does he stay in San Francisco? Does he go to a New York Jets? As you see that 49ers defense kind of work its way around the league, you'll see these players sort of follow suit. I would think DeMeco Ryans has an inside track on a lot of these guys right now because of their quarterback situation. Alohi Gilman. I've never even heard that name before. goes to show you how much I know about that guy. Edge rusher, nope. Edge rusher, nope. Linebacker, nope. Edge, no. KJ Osborne, I don't think so. I would be very upset if that was the signing we would end up going after. Cam Fleming. So offensive lineman from Denver. I think there's a situation or a possible scenario where Garrett Bowles, the left tackle for Denver, ends up shaking free. They are so far over the cap, and he's a $16 million cap savings. He's a top 10 tackle in the league. I would go out and pay him a ton of money, and then maybe the Broncos wind up trying to re-sign Fleming maybe a little bit cheaper instead of having Bowles over there. But I'm not necessarily in on Fleming here. Noah Brown, no thank you. Darnell Savage, nope. For Nixon, Bud Dupree. I didn't even realize he was still in the league at this point. Mike Edwards, Sean Murphy, and Jeremy Chin. So I think as far as like top free agents go, I definitely prefer the wide receivers and the offensive tackles at the top of this list, with the exception of some guys, maybe like a DJ Shark if you're looking for a lower end cost type free agent. Maybe you can bring in like a Shark and a Curtis Samuel, and maybe that's enough to whet your palate. I very much want to figure out a way to trade for Cortland Sutton and bring in a Curtis Samuel, and now you have Curtis Samuel, Sutton, and Garrett Wilson as your top 3. I think that opens up some doors for the New York Jets here. All right, that's pretty much all I've got. I think I've got a crying kid to get to at this point. A little lunchtime for Ren here. Guys, let me know your thoughts of the top 150 list. What players did you see on that list that you'd like to see the Jets move forward with? What players do you think the Jets are going to move forward with? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.